Yep. Hello and welcome. This is Dr. John Mason. I'm with Masters of the Journey. We have a very special interview tonight with Rodger Ruge. Hold on just one second. And tonight our topic is empowering the change you wish to see. Our main presenter is Rodger Ruge. He is with Mountain Sound Therapy out of Nederland, Colorado. I'm going to introduce him in just a minute. Well, welcome again. As I said, we're going to have Rodger Ruge give us a little bit more information. I'd like to give just a little bit of background about Rodger. First off, what you don't know is that he was involved in law enforcement for 20 years. And when he worked in many positions there, he ended up as a trainer specializing in wellness. He became certified as a stress management person. He knows martial arts. He studied Eastern philosophy and beliefs. He's done a lot with meditation and various activities. He's also the author of the book, The Warrior's Mantra. You can tell that he really has a major Eastern influence, and he believes that, of course, mind and discipline is a great way to behave, not just for people in law enforcement, but for everyone in the world. And recently I wouldn't say recently, but he's opened the Mountain Sound Therapy Center in Nederland, Colorado. And he'll tell you a little bit more about it, but it's kind of a combination of stress management, working with sounds and biofeedback, doing the energy healing that he does. And he's really interested in helping people go within and find levels of self-control and an empowerment so that they can then go out and function at a very high level in the world, which is what we're on topic with tonight. So we're going to begin our conversation, and I have a question that it's sort of been written out. I want to read it in its entirety and get Rodger started. You know, we're speaking to you from the United States, North America, in November of 2018, and we've just gone through the midterm elections. And now that we are past the election cycle, we hope things would calm down, but people seem to be in an excited state from the results and still experiencing the significant amount of energy drain and polarization, with both sides of the fence digging in even deeper. With this added stress of the holidays coming up, what can we do to feel love, joy, peace, and balance? Rodger, please give us a little bit of background.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, excuse me, I want to take just a little bit of a step back into my background and how I've come to be where I am, because I think it gives just a tad more context to what I'm about to share with regard to people really in a state of feeling overwhelmed, which is what I'm noticing not only with my clients, but with my friends, and the deep polarization on a larger scale within our communities and country. Back when I was a police officer, I was always looking for ways to enhance warrior skills. And not in the way that people might traditionally think of a warrior, because our media tries to paint this kind of bloodthirsty Neanderthal going out and conquering evil forces. But really what I wanted to focus on was becoming a peaceful warrior. And John was one of the very first people that I actually trained with in stress management biofeedback, because the industry of law enforcement is suffering, and suffering tremendously even to this day, with not understanding how to handle all the things that are happening to them. So I began to test this, expand it, train with Native American shamans, doctors, monks, martial arts masters, to kind of come up with a way to take people who are in the most intense states of stress, and I would say distress, and if we can mitigate there, then we can have a way to also pass this on to folks that are experiencing what I would call normal life events, which is to say distress in different ways. So one of the things that I really noticed was everybody in North America right now is really functioning at a very high level, where I mean every waking moment is taken with some form of activity. And seems to be so little downtime now, so little time for self-care. People have to squeeze it in where they can if they even have the energy for it. So what do we do when we're experiencing events like these midterm elections? And this would just kind of came to me as I was watching everybody from a sort of a disassociated perspective. I was looking in the lens of, wow, look what's happening. I have friends who are on both sides of the fence, red and blue, right? Republican, Democrat, liberal, conservative, and they are all digging into their entrenched positions. And even within these diverse communities, I have friends who are mutual friends. They have different beliefs. These different beliefs that they have caused their friendships to fracture because they have dug in so deep to the point of name calling and threats and things that are just completely out of character for the people that I know. And then I'm watching this similar trend take place within the aspects of social media. So what's going on there? In my opinion, we're already maxed out. And when we're maxed out, we become more susceptible to anger, fear, and sadness. So those are heightened emotional states when we're feeling overwhelmed. And then people experience something that is controversial, and then they begin to act out in ways of anger, fear, and sadness toward other people. And that only polarizes, pulls us apart, drives us into division. You know, I was born in the beginning of the 60s, and I cannot remember a time when this country has seemed more divided to me. Even the tumultuous aspect of the 60s didn't have the edge it has today, from my perspective. So what I know is we're all really running at maximum, and self-care practices really aren't taking place. And so then you have a polarizing event and people start to react to that. What can we do about it, right? So I thought, well, for sure, once we get these elections behind us and the dust settles, things will settle down. But that isn't happening. What I'm noticing now is, again, my clients, my friends, and from a larger perspective looking at social media, people are just entrenching even deeper into these polarized positions. And we're about to enter the stress of the holidays. That is a recipe for some pretty intense energy to be spent in pretty negative ways and can cause even further divisions amongst people. It can suck the joy right out of a time of year where we should be really in the mindset of love, happiness, and celebration. So, that's kind of the perspective that I'm looking at it with, John. And I thought what we could cover tonight, and of course, I'd always appreciate your feedback and input too, is what can people do about that? As we have these feelings of overwhelm, can we begin the process of finding a way to move more gracefully while not giving up our belief systems, but at the same time, finding love, compassion, joy, happiness? Can we make those emotions rise to the top and become the way that we are in the world while not giving up our belief systems? And I think people are really struggling to see how those two things match up.
Oh, I had to figure out how to unmute myself. I'm really sorry. And for anybody who has questions, please just enter them in the chat area. So, I love what you've been saying, and I know that so many of us are feeling like victims, and we're feeling like we don't have any power or control. And we feel like there are things that are happening in our physical world or coming at us through our media, through our TV, our computer, the news representations. We're just being assaulted. And I know that you and I both have the perspective that we do have control. We can control the way we respond in these difficult situations. And we can be empowering in our way that we take care of ourselves. And I'm going to use a word that's new to me, but it seems really appropriate. Finding equanimity in these difficult situations. In other words, knowing that we don't have to get caught in the drama of the polarization and everything that's going on around us. And I know that you are really an expert on exercise and fitness and meditation. And are you going to be able to share any of the skill sets so that people can perhaps let go and be in control of at least the way they respond, and in that way empower them? What do you think, Rodger?
Yeah, absolutely, John. So, it's that control piece that is one of the big elements here. People feel like they are out of control when they are overwhelmed. And the other piece that really plays into this is a feeling of powerlessness, as if whatever action I take is so tiny that I can't affect the change I would like to see in the world. Perhaps this administration that we're experiencing is something you love and want to see continue. Or perhaps it's so polarizing that you're like, oh my God, I cannot believe we have this administration. What can I do against this giant machine? And once we start entering into this phase of, oh, it's so big, I'm so overwhelmed, we just throw up our hands in frustration. And it only drives us into deeper states of anxiety, depression, stress, and even distress. I see people moving into distress, which is, truly in crisis over some of the most seemingly insignificant things. They're completely losing it on social media and that kind of thing. So these are all just reflections of a bigger systemic problem. So, when I look at it, it's like, okay, if I really and truly embrace the idea, what is it that I can control in this moment? And I take my energy and begin to focus on that, then I can let go of the other things because I've got my energy channeling in the right direction. And I think what people discount is how little actions seem so insignificant. But I'm going to take a completely different perspective on that. I think little actions are the miracles that begin to accumulate. And once enough of those happen, we create a tipping point. And what if we got to a point where the existing administrations and big structures and all of that became irrelevant because we stopped feeding into this power struggle that we're having? Let me give you an example of how a tiny action can lead to a complete shift in someone's energy, which they will then pay forward. So I was out with my beautiful partner, Dr. Brandy McCanns. She and I were having a meal in our local community, which is a very, very small community. It's at 8,500 feet in the mountains above Boulder, Colorado. And we were having a wonderful meal. And I noticed our waitress was working very hard that night. It was a super busy night. And I'm, because of 20 years in law enforcement, I still have a state of hypervigilance to my environment. I notice everything. And what I noticed was between the orders and hustling food and all of that, our waitress was going over to give comfort to her daughter who was there at the restaurant. And her daughter was approximately 10 or 11 years old, and she seemed to be having a little bit of a hard night. Some tears and things like that. And mom would sit with her and be fully present, man. And I mean fully present. I was in awe that with all the distractions of her job, in those short little windows of time she had, that she could go to her daughter, comfort her, make her laugh, tickle with her, talk to her, so connected. And then she'd come right back to being an amazing waitress, not distracted, giving me her full attention for whatever it was I desired. And I watched this interplay take place throughout the entire meal. At the end of the meal, I got my bill and I paid that, and I left a more generous tip than I normally would because I was so impressed. And then on the back of the bill, I wrote a little personal note to her. And I just wrote down on there, hey, I just wanted to say how amazing I think you are as a waitress and as a mom, that you were taking such great care of your daughter, who's obviously having a little bit of a difficult night. I'm amazed you could balance all that. Just wanted to acknowledge that. It was words to that effect. That's it. I turned it back over so she couldn't see that right away. I didn't want to distract her or interfere with her night. And then I just submitted my bill, said thanks, and left. As Brandy and I were leaving the restaurant, we were starting to walk down the street. The door to the restaurant suddenly bursts open, and the waitress chases us down. And she tells us in that moment, hey, I want you to know how much that note meant to me. My husband left 3 weeks ago. He left my daughter and I. I'm trying to do the single mom thing. I have to keep this job. I literally have to have my daughter here with me because there's no one to watch her right now. And I feel so overwhelmed. Thank you so much for those words. And which I just said, you're very welcome. And she went back inside glowing, and then was with her daughter and her customers for the rest of the night. Now, that seems like a very small thing. But did I leave that human being in a better state of consciousness than she was? Well, clearly I did, and it affected her on a level much deeper than I even thought was possible or intended. If we can look for excuses to those levels of kindness, no matter where we are, and we hold the energy that we want the world to shift to, a positive, loving, peaceful, balanced energy, we affect everyone around us. What if everything on our Facebook feed shifted to positivity and was the message that we would like to see the world shift to? What if enough people did that and we created this overwhelming shift in positivity, in love, in balance, and joy? And from that, we begin affecting people around us. You see, to me, yeah, I can't fight Goliath. You know, I just have no desire to go to war against the existing system. But you show me a path of love, and I'm all over it. And I look for ways to do this every single day. If you look on my Facebook feed, you'll never see negativity there. You'll never see polarization. You'll only see things that are loving or informative or helping people to take a step. So when we feel out of control, we got to get back into, okay, what do I have control over? And even if it's something as simple as telling another human being how amazing they are, or calling up a friend and saying, you know, I was thinking about you today. I just wanted to tell you I love you. How much does that shift our consciousness towards positivity, less feelings of overwhelm, joy, happiness, reduction in our panic, fear, and anxiety? It sounds so small. It sounds so simple. And yet, to my experience, it's among the most profound human experiences we can do.
You know, I love the story, and I love what you were saying. I think we need to acknowledge that not everybody is saint-like you. I think that we are frustrated and angry. I think we need to acknowledge that. And the next step is, don't be a victim to it. Get back into the present moment and think of Rodger Ruge's example of the story, or of the 100th monkey concept, that if somehow we raise our consciousness and we do good things in the world, it affects other people, and more people generally catch on to that higher level of consciousness. If we could look at every soul, person that we bump into, even the ones whose behavior are unacceptable or difficult for us, they're there for a reason. We're supposed to learn a lesson from them. And maybe we still need to look beyond that, because we don't understand why they behave the way they do, and say they are a beautiful, perfect soul somewhere buried in that horrible behavior. And we, like you said, we need to find some way of acknowledging, accepting, loving. I'm continuously having to struggle with my lesson of judging and judgment. But I can also say that I'm now smiling at people that look a little different than me now, and appreciating the difference, appreciating their energy. And I've given you a little bit of a break, but you know, how do we take our attitude of positivity and really I don't know, build a list of the things that we might be able to accept doing in the world that would make a change? What do you think?
Yeah, I love that question. And of course, you could write a book on that particular question in general. I'm going to tell you one of the most effective strategies that I have advised people, and I actually got this from you, John Mason, all the way back on 9/11. And when that event happened, for those who don't know, I'm going to tell a quick story about John and then translate that into how I've helped people. So John was on television as a management expert. He owned the Stress Education Center, and he was being interviewed by the television personalities. I think it was the day after 9/11. And and the bottom line was they asked John for advice on what people could do by this incredible event and feeling so overwhelmed. And John said, straight as an arrow, turn the TV off. And keep in mind, John was on TV at that time, which left the news anchor completely speechless as to, oh, sweet Jesus, what have I just done? I love that story, but it's very powerful. So I'm going to tell you one of the tricks that I've done when I feel overwhelmed. And you know, John, you used the word, not everybody's a saint like me. Let me tell you that I too struggle with feelings of overwhelm, for sure. And these strategies are very powerful. So I've noticed that, for example, when we look at our media, Facebook can be a source of fun, inspiration, and joy. Here's something most people don't know. You can control what you see on your Facebook feed. You can actually go to like positive websites. A great one that I really enjoy is called Spirit Science. Wonderful people that are running that show. They're always positive messaging. And I put those as first in my feed. You can list up to 30 things that you'll see first when you go to your feed to check in on what's happening that day. So the very first thing I see are positive, life-enhancing information, or just things that people are putting as little snippets of love out to the world. This is the very first thing I see in my Facebook feed. The other thing I've done with Facebook is, and I'm going to be, this is a little hardcore, maybe not for everyone, but I literally unfollow or unfriend people who are stuck in negativity. I don't want to see it, and it's just gone. I cut them out like a cancer. Do you need to do that? I don't know, maybe. But the idea being, I'm constructing Facebook to be what I want it to be, which is a joyful experience where I go in there and have wonderful interactions. If you go to my Facebook page, which is Facebook.com/transform with Rodger, and Rodger has a D in it, RODGER, you'll see discussions in there on questions and things where people are really putting in positive information, positive energy. They're challenging things, they're talking about things, and we're all trying to help each other take a step. That's my goal on Facebook, and that's the presence that I'm choosing to be. The other thing is, yes, take a media fast. Here's what I mean by a media fast, and I challenge you to try this. Take 7 days with no media whatsoever. No network news, no podcasts, no television shows, no phone on the smartphone, nothing. Put it away for 7 days. Now, when I tell people this, I actually see them transform in anxiety. I see that literally anxiety comes over their face. They look at me as if I have lost my mind completely, that they cannot possibly get along without their media, that they can't stay disconnected. But my challenge is to you is to try it. Try it for 7 days and just see what happens. I'll share with you another quick story. I was doing a seminar on stress management and doing biofeedback training with people. I had about 60 people in the room, and these were park rangers. So they're law enforcement professionals that work in the great outdoors. And they were experiencing a state of extreme stress from budget cuts and things like that. They brought me in to do some training. Wonderful. I suggested this, a media fast. And I had a lady in class just literally come out of her seat and throw a number of F-bombs at me as if I was a complete lunatic for even suggesting this idea. So what I said back to her was, typically when we meet that level of resistance to an idea, it's probably something we should do. She said, all right, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to prove how much BS that actually is. I said, great. Let me know how your 7 days go. She went home, and she had two boys, 8 years old and 10 years old, who were into violent video games. And that's a little young maybe for that, but that's maybe not that abnormal. They would also, each one had their own form of media that they'd bring to the dinner table. Conversations wouldn't happen, that kind of thing. So she said, hey, this jerk suggested we should take 7 days off from the media. Well, it so happened that that actually perfectly coincided with turn the TV off week at the boys' school. So everybody said, okay, what do we have to lose? Let's just do that for 7 days. Now, here's where the miracle happened. When they put it all away and they didn't have access to media anymore, not their smartphones, their tablets, computers, television, all gone, they started to become a family again. At the dinner table, not only did they have discussions, which was the first time that had happened in a long time, but they even added one additional thing, that each person had to check in about what the best thing was that happened to them during that day. And they all got to hear stories of positivity. After dinner, what are you going to do? Well, they began to play together. They played board games. They went to the park. They read books together. This was so amazing for them that 7 days turned into 30, and 30 turned into forever. Now, am I suggesting to you you need to get rid of your media forever? No, not at all. But what I am saying is, are you a slave to your technology, or is your technology being used by you in ways that are empowering? You have control over it. And again, you know, when I look at the news media today compared to when I was a younger man, the news media today is about polarization. It's about opinions. Very few organizations are just reporting facts and letting you decide what those mean. So the programming is really geared to keep you in this state of excitability, and negatively so. So one of the biggest things I say, John, is take a break from the media, especially when you're feeling overwhelmed.
You know, and Anthony in the chat room mentioned the word fear, and how prevalent it is that that's what the media does. And my understanding is they can have you eyeballs on the screen if they tell you to be insecure and so fearful that if you don't watch, the boogeyman's going to get you. It'll sneak up on you unless you stay with them and stay in their state of polarization or anger or polarization and fear. We don't have to be victims to that. I think it starts, half the battle is with awareness. It's just knowing that that's the case. And then the other half of the battle is learning how to take care of oneself or make those decisions, like you say, to take a media fast or to take a deep breath and find our way back into the present moment and to be mindful, to be present instead of way back in the past and still dealing with unresolved stuff, or I have to get the fingers right, or fearful of what's going to happen in the future, which is in the unknown. Those are the things that create the fear and the upsets for us, is not being as present as we possibly can be.
Yeah, 100%, John. And so here we are now. As a society, we're in a hyper state of vigilance. We're a little bit more agitated. And so now we're coming into the holidays with those energies. So there's a couple of things I wanted to say about the holidays and in general. You know, we tend to take on too much. And a lot of people, you know, they kind of appreciate Thanksgiving a little more than Christmas because at least you don't have the obligation of going out and spending hundreds to thousands of dollars and the gifts and all the stuff that comes with that. Thanksgiving tends to be a little bit better, but it's still adding a lot on the plate, you know, especially if you happen to be hosting. So what can we do as we approach the holiday season? We've got office parties and this friend and that friend and the eating and all the things. And boy, we get into this cycle. We're already overwhelmed and, oh God, we got to go over to John and Mary's house. Oh, gee, what can we do? Well, it's actually okay to say no. It really is okay to say no. Like I have a friend who, and she's amazing, and she loves to bake. So every year at this time of year, she bakes, are you ready for this? 1,200 cookies. Yep, I'm not kidding, 1,200 cookies. Now, she loves to bake, but what you hear from start to finish is how insane it is, how hard it is, it's this, that, and the other thing. And yet she does it every year and puts herself through tremendous distress over it. 1,200 cookies. I mean, wow. And the thing about that is, could you bake maybe 100 cookies? Could you do 20? I mean, why 1,200? Why do you feel like you have to be the Pied Piper of cookie baking, right? So it begins to say, okay, look, I really am a little overwhelmed, and I'm going to say no to a certain number of things this year to make this more manageable. We have the power to do that, but we get into this mindset of, no, I'm known for doing this. This is my tradition. I've got to take it on, even when we're feeling like, gosh, I don't have the bandwidth to do this. Your self-care is the most critical thing you can possibly do. And what I am noticing in my client base, as well as in general, self-care has become the least priority in people's lives. That everything else is coming before their own self-care, when in fact we should be reversing that formula. So, and I realized this as well for myself. There was a period in time as a police officer where I took on a number of additional things, and I finally learned the power of saying no because I reached my saturation point. I was literally breaking down mentally and physically. So I flipped the script, and my self-care practices became my number one priority. For me, self-care is simple. Really clean nutrition going into the body, daily exercise of some kind for about 20 to 30 minutes. That's it. I hit it hard and intense, and then I'm done. And I meditate. Meditation is always a priority, and there is nothing more important in my life than that meditation period. So everything else is second to that. That is my number one thing that I do every day for myself. And because I did that, guess what? I have more energy. I have more positivity. I have more bandwidth to do more things, and I don't feel stressed about it. See, this is the thing. We got to flip that script, John, and we got to get back to making self-care a really important priority, because it'll make you better in every aspect of your life. And you will be able to do more. You will have more energy. You'll have a better attitude. That's how it works. We think, oh my God, I don't have time to add it. No. You've got to change your mindset around that. It's essential that you do add it so you're more efficient at the things that you do throughout the day, so you feel more grounded and less overwhelmed. This will change your life in completely dramatic ways by simply flipping it to the number one priority, making your self-care number one. And if you get resistance from people in your life, just sit them down and say, listen, I am struggling and this is super important to me. I really need your support. They're going to be there for you. When you come to someone with that kind of candor and honesty, you look them right in the eye and say, I've got to do this for myself so I can be the best I can be. They're going to support you. Those are people that love you, care for you. They'll be there for you.
We're going to open it up for questions in a minute, because I think Anthony has a question for you. But when you've addressed the holiday issue, I think that, what people forget is how much power they have to make that attempt to curb their own expectations. And the expectations that they can make 1,200 cookies. Like, oh, I did it last year. Well, I'm going to do 1,300 this year. Or I'm not a good person if I don't. And we have expectations that we place on ourselves. Your suggestion of self-care can become one of the best and healthiest expectations, that we put ourselves first and we eat right, we exercise, and we meditate. And if we schedule those into every day and have that expectation that needs to come first, it does give us more time and energy, really, to do the other things that come up in life if we can not over expect those things. You want to say anything, or should we start opening up for questions?
Yeah, let me just follow that up with one comment. I know a lot of people that will be listening to this are thinking, well, sure, you're at that age, your kids are grown, you don't have to deal with all the things I have to deal with, and the excuses begin to come in. Let me tell you that I've been following this philosophy since my children were born. And one of the ways that I got my exercise in, you want to get an amazing workout, set a 5-year-old loose on a jungle gym set and follow them. I guarantee you'll be huffing and puffing, right? So there's ways. My meditation, my daughters and I would meditate together, and we made a game out of it. I said, I wonder how long you two can sit in silence. And we played that game for a little while. At first, they could only sit for maybe 2-3 minutes. And then over time, 15, 20 minutes. And we're talking about kids that were at that time, when I introduced them to meditation, my daughters have a 4-year window in their age gap. And my youngest was 5, my oldest was 9. And we began playing this meditation game. And now they still do this to this day. They meditate. So there are ways. You just have to get creative and think, okay, this isn't necessarily just a solo journey. How can I do that? Join a meetup group that does meditation. Go for a hike in nature. You can walk and meditate. Yeah, there's just so many different ways to obtain balance. We just have to, again, make it the priority. And once we do that and everything else becomes secondary to that, we'll find a way. Once it's a priority, we'll find a way. You know, people tell me about procrastination. I don't believe in it. I really don't believe there's procrastination, because if I said to you, John Mason, I want you to show up at my house tomorrow afternoon from Bellingham, Washington to Colorado, and if you get there by 5 p.m., I'm going to give you $1 million. You would be knocking at my door at 4:30. You'd be there early with a suit on, say, thank you very much, I'll take my money. You see, it's not a matter of procrastination. It's a matter of proper motivation. So when we understand that self-care can enhance every aspect of our life and it becomes the priority, you won't skip it anymore. You'll find that it's the most amazing way to now be in the world. So I just wanted to add that as a little piece.
Well, thank you very much. Those are all good points. I've unmuted everybody. If they want to say something, Anthony, did you have a question for Rodger?
No, yeah, I just wanted to. Hi, Rodger. How you doing? Hi, John.
Yes.
MA. Hello. Just wanted to say hi and thanks for giving this talk today.
Yeah, you're very welcome, Anthony. I appreciated your comment on fear.
Yeah.
You know, fear is what the world is running on right now, truly.
Right.
And I believe it was Reverend Michael Beckwith who said, he may not be the originator of this, but it's the first time I heard it. If you take fear and make it an acronym, it's false evidence appearing real. And
Right.
we just build this up in our minds, you know. So if we kind of keep that in mind, that that's not the picture the media is painting is this incredible biased perspective to inflame us to fear, so we get that fear response which feeds them. If we begin to really understand that, we go, oh, wait a minute, man, there is a bigger picture here. Let me take a step back and really take a look at truth.
Right. Exactly.
Yes, sir.
The thing is, the people who always watch the news, especially, I studied politics in college. I have been quite active on many different political forums and on Facebook and all that. I've stepped away from that ever since Trump became president. I've kind of stepped away from it, but I was very active. I was very opinionated, and I wasn't afraid to say how I feel. A lot of the folks that follow Trump are folks who are Christian, and they are mad, and they are white, and they don't understand that they have to share the world with other people, and they think that yoga, they think that meditation, they think that everything that's Eastern philosophy is BS and it's of the devil. So it's really difficult to explain to somebody that they need to do self-care. when they're coming from that perspective and that ignorance and innocence, whatever you want to call it. The other thing that I wanted to say, which is very interesting, is that I'm starting coaching and I'm starting speaking. And what I do is I coach happiness and wellness and prosperity. I'm setting up a webinar, and I have had a Facebook group for about a week, and I have about 200 people in there. And I put it out there for male businessmen because I know that a lot of male businessmen need balance between their personal life and their business life, and because I've been there myself, and I've been through a lot of stressful situations, and I've been depressed, had social anxiety, I've had paranoia, I've had voices in my head, I've had a lot of different things going on psychologically that I've had to get over without counseling, so I'm trying to make it so that I can help other folks out, because I've done a lot of studying about mysticism, I am discourses, Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism. And so that's what I'm doing. What I found though with this group is that like most of them are blue collar folks from, all over the United States. And, some are Trump supporters. And so I'm trying to dumb down my system so that, not really dumb it down, but make it so it's in layman's terms and more friendly for people who aren't necessarily as woke as we are, or as as conscious of spirituality as we are, so that it's a little more digestible. And it's just interesting that we're talking about this volatile political atmosphere and how how just venomous it is, and I'm kind of in this situation in which I'm trying to help, in the way that I can, as many people as possible. So I'm setting up a webinar so that folks can come in and learn as much as possible in order to stay happy and really, because there's a lot of depression going on, and depression isn't just like somebody who doesn't say nothing, who's in the background and wants to kill themselves. I mean, depression can also be like somebody who is, they voice their opinions and they're always pissed off. And I mean, that could be a different type of, depression. And so there's a lot of folks out there that are, completely depressed, angered. And I'm not a psychologist. So John, if you want to say something about that, that's fine too. But yeah, it's awesome that you're giving this talk right now, Rodger, and John, you're giving your points of views. That's great. We do need to do something, and everybody has to do something, as much as they can, and it does reverberate, and it does, go through in waves and hit everybody around you in our communities. And so I completely agree with what you're talking about.
Anthony, thank you so much. I mean, you're articulate. You've got this energy. You didn't ask a question. You were just telling us. So we needed your input. Rodger doesn't know you, but I know that you're brand new in our Bellingham area's Masters of the Journey program.
Yep.
And I'm really looking forward to feeling your energy in person on this coming Sunday, or in the future when we get together. Mm-hmm. And maybe there's a way that you can spread some of your views. We can do an interview with you when you have just a little bit more of a track record, and we can get that out there, because your view is important. We just have to couch it in terms where the listener is not only going to be shaking their head and saying yes, but what are we taking away from it? How can we be empowered as an individual?
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, Anthony, I loved what you said, and I wanted to speak to something specifically, and that is the idea of helping others who may not be as awakened or are just starting to explore these things, and the semantics we choose. So when I was with the police department, I was also, among many other duties, I was the lead fitness instructor at the police academy. So I had young men and women who were looking for careers in law enforcement. And a lot of these folks were coming straight out of the military. That's a big recruiting ground for law enforcement, especially during wartime years. And Of course, they're all in their, their 20s, filled with testosterone, most of them, even the women. And I would introduce them to different things, but I'd had to be very careful about my semantics because they were the semantics I wanted to choose to reach them in ways they would understand to take a step. For example, I would tell them, hey, listen, we're going to take a little break today from fitness, and I'm going to do a guided relaxation and visualization exercise to enhance your warrior skills. Now, that sounds pretty sexy to a group of law enforcement recruits, but really what I was doing was having them meditate, and they loved it. If I'd have said, hey guys, we're going to meditate, they'd gone and gotten a rope and put me up on a tree. So, again, I wanted to introduce them to the ideas of yoga. So I said, hey, we're going to do some advanced stretching exercises today that are designed to loosen up your lower back and spine area where a lot of police officers get injured. Awesome, coach, let's do that. And we'd go and do yoga. So the idea of helping people to take a step is to really understand the learner characteristics of the people you're addressing. And when you understand that, you can then begin to couch things in ways that will grasp into their knowledge base and help them take a step without seeming too woo-woo, if you will, because Eastern mysticism can seem threatening to the Judeo-Christian base, right? So we want to be coming at them with ways of the semantics that they could understand. When I tell people, ask yourself a single question when facing any life challenge, and the question is this: what would love do? Love is the perfect way to get the right information back, because love will always give you the correct answer. But if I were working with a strong Christian group, I would rephrase the question and I would say, when you're facing a challenge in life, ask yourself a single question: what would Jesus do? And again, I'm just meeting them with the semantics of their world, what makes sense to them, to help them take a step. So Anthony, I'm truly appreciating the way you're going about building your group. And I want to say this as well. This is another example of taking what we know and then spreading it out to one person, 20 people, 200 people. And while we do this, we are uplifting the consciousness of our world to a more loving vibration. If we do this enough, if enough light workers come in, and I consider you a light worker, Anthony, then we're going to tip. And we don't have to fight Goliath. We don't have to fight the system. We can simply make it insignificant through love. Beautiful, brother. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you, Rodger.
Yeah, and thank you, Anthony. And let's start to wind this down. But I have a question for you, Rodger, that needs to be asked and I think needs to be answered. Because of who you are, and I know your skill set, and I've known you for a long time, it's brilliant getting a chance to work with you. So do you do your sound healing in a form of biofeedback or stress management that allows people that are not just in person, but maybe some distance from you? How do you get a chance to coach and work with people who may not be in the Boulder, Nederland area of Colorado?
Well, yeah, thanks for that, John. There's nothing like hands-on sound healing. It's pretty intense and relaxing and moving and all those things. But a lot of folks don't live near me. So what can we do? Well, I do a lot of life coaching. We just kind of do these kind of interviews where I find out what's going on, what's alive in your world, and perhaps offer some steps that you can take through various forms of stress management, biofeedback, and that kind of thing. Specifically with sound healing, there are a number of amazing artists out there and sound healers who have compiled musical compilations that are in certain sound frequencies and binaural beats that will help you overcome stress, anxiety, pain, all these things. It's really amazing. The music scale that I work with is called the solfeggio music scale. It's ut, re, mi, fa, sol, la. And this was the same sounds that were sung by Gregorian monks back in the 1600s. It actually is mathematically based. And here's something really interesting with these sounds. You can look this up on YouTube and find tons and tons of videos that have been made with solfeggio frequencies as an underlying tone to nature sounds and water and music and rain, that kind of thing. The solfeggio tones, when we take a speaker and we run a wire from the speaker to a metal plate, and we sprinkle sand on that metal plate and then vibrate it with specific frequencies, the solfeggio frequencies vibrate into sacred geometrical patterns. That is phenomenal. So if you want to study that a little bit more, I always point people toward cymatics, C-Y-M-A-T-I-C-S, cymatics. You could type that into YouTube or Google and you'll get chapter and verse on it. It's a very impressive thing. So when I work with folks, I often recommend certain videos depending, and this is work other people have already done to a superb level. I really have no need or desire to replicate this amazing work. It's already out there. But I'll send people to certain things based on what's going on with them from physical and mental symptomologies that they can then use on their own. And you can do it in a very short window of time or spend hours a day. I often have these things playing in the background while I'm working, for example. If I need to stimulate my higher reasoning centers, Mozart's Sonata for 2 pianos in D major turns on the higher reasoning centers in the brain. So this is what I coach people on, John. It's really helping them to understand that there's a wealth of information out there, but I can give you very specific guidance to the best of the best, along with some coaching to help take steps.
Yeah, we're going to put your contact information onto this video. So for people that are watching it, they'll know how to get in touch with you. And I spelled solfeggio, which is S-O-L-F-E-G-G-I-O. People need to go look that up. My experience in working with Rodger and the sound therapy was that he has tones that help to balance each and every one of the main chakras, the 7 main chakras in the body. And it was not only a relaxing experience, but it was a soothing, healing experience that is, it seems similar to what you might get in acupuncture or massage, but I think it's just a really nice combination of wonderful techniques. I came out of there, of course, slightly disoriented because that was such a wonderful feeling. Thank you, Rodger.
Thanks, John. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Anthony, did you have a question before we wind it down?
No, I didn't. Just thank you for all that amazing information that you presented there, Rodger. And yeah, I appreciate it. I think I'm going to also implement that into my program in regards to the semantics and the different, vocabulary that's a little bit more layman's and less spiritual. So yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely, Anthony. It's really critical, frankly. John just used the word chakra. And chakra in Sanskrit means wheel.
Right.
And so, well, what is a chakra? Well, actually, a chakra is a plexus, heart plexus. And what a plexus is?
Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry, Rodger. I muted you temporarily. You were talking about the wheel.
Yeah. So when we look at chakra in Sanskrit means wheel. Well, what is that? So I help American audiences who don't want to hear the word chakra. They immediately associate that with woo-woo. And I say, no, what these are energy centers. They're called plexus. So we have a heart plexus, we have a solar plexus, and so on. And what's a plexus? Well, it's a group of neurons, and each of those neurons fires and wires to different points in the brain. This is science. So then stimulate these areas which affect the heart center and heart coherence, digestion, all these things, the different organ systems. And people go, oh. And then I add, and in India, they've known about this for thousands of years. It's called wheels or chakras, but it's the plexus system. So again, I find ways to reach that ever analytical Western mind and then gently insert them into the mysticism piece of it, because science is showing that these two things come together. So appreciating that a lot, Anthony.
Thank you once again, everybody, for coming on and attending, even the people working in the background, because this is what we're trying to do, trying to get the word out. And I appreciate all of the energy. Let's go out in the world and start that 100th monkey experience of not getting caught in the fear, not getting caught in the anger, being aware of when we do so that we can let go of it, become present, and find a way of connecting in a much more positive and loving way. So thank you, Rodger.
You're very welcome. Thanks for the opportunity to be here, John. I really enjoyed it.
Great. And I'm going to put up stop the recording and just hang in there for just a second. I'm going to put up the contact information. And here's the contact information for Rodger with the Mountain Sound Therapy in Nederland, Colorado. The phone number that he takes calls, his email, and the information that you can find on his Facebook page. Again, thank you so much. If you like this interview and you're willing to share it, I'm going to be posting it on YouTube, and then we'll send out a link so that people can experience this and view this information even further. Thank you all for coming.